Welcome you to Porch Talk. This is your host, Alan, and this is a Zoom call. Say hi, YouTube, and if you're on the audio version, Apple, Spotify, however you get it, I've got Varya here with me.
Hello, hello.
So, Varya, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm real excited about this interview. Shout out to Igor for hooking this up.
Yes, he's done quite a bit to kind of get me out of my little box and be like, okay, you've got the album. How do we actually put it out there now? So, yes, shout out.
How, how did y'all connect?
We've been kind of in the same circles in Russian speaking musician world in New York for probably over a decade without ever really officially meeting. I'm sure we've crossed paths at like a party or a concert here and there, but never really knew each
Mhm.
other. But I'm friends with like half of his bandmates, so it just kind of came together. He was like, "I'm looking to promote musicians." I'm like, "I'm that. I need that." So we just
He
kind
has
of
been such a blessing.
yeah,
He has connected me to so many people.
nice. I love that. Yeah, he's a go-getter in that, and I think he's um, I didn't know that in our community, because he's played in a lot of bands, and like I said, a bunch of people that I'm friends with or played with before. And I always knew his name and that he's kind of usually in the background, this quiet guy. I did not know that he was the one kind of managing the business behind all of those bands, and I had no idea. And so when I put that together, I'm like, we have to be friends, Igor, properly this
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So just a little bit about you and your background. Tell me a little bit about where you're from and growing up.
Yeah, well, I'm originally from Moldova, so that's post-Soviet world. And I mean, this is a Romanian-speaking country, and they have since very much reclaimed their Moldavian roots, Romanian language, all of these things. But I am of the Russian Ukrainian descent. So it's a very mixed kind of bag of where you go. And yeah, so I speak Russian. My world was very much Russian music of the time. Russian bard music was what was in my house. My parents played guitar, sang on stage. It was kind of a very um, yeah, it was, I mean, it was a very musical environment, but at the same time, it was very casual. Like, it was just, I, the closest I can describe it is the first time that I moved to Austin once for a little while. And that hit me in a, much the same way, where everyone is a musician and no one is a musician. So it was kind of that vibe. Like, I didn't even know that singing was a thing. I didn't know that until I was in high school in New York when I got into a choir and they're like, you can sing. I'm like, can't you? And they're like, no, that's. I didn't
Everybody's
know.
doing it.
Everyone's doing it. It was just what we did in the family. So that was kind of my background, I guess, growing up. And it was a big contrast of very like soulful, lyrical, poetic, deep music that my parents did and like MTV trash because I didn't have, like, there was no healthy medium. So it was a very kind of fun, the first times I tried to sing songs, it's like, I'm going to be a pop star and very quickly realizing that that is a terrible idea. Nor do I even like that music very much. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, I mean, if you pay attention to the top 40, that is the way. It's
Yeah,
like if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it this cookie cutter way.
for sure. Well, growing up, I think it was also very much a rebellion from my parents because what they did was very uncool, like so uncool. And yeah, so it was very natural, to just go listen what are the kids doing in school? What's on TV? And it took me some time to kind of draw away from that and actually find what do I genuinely like? What is my music? And that was very different as I discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you're grown and you're writing your own music, does that influence come back now?
I think so, very much. Like yeah, it's been pointed out to me many times. I don't purposely try to do that, but definitely people kind of from my childhood has reached out. My mom has pointed it out. Many friends that I know who are kind of in the Russian bard realm are like, that's what you're doing. And the way my brain even works around it, to me, it's always kind of poetry first or lyrics first. It's always kind of that's how my mind works about it, and the music is just the venue to support what I'm trying to say with my words.
Same.
And so even if it's a very different sounding genre from what I grew up with, it's very much how my brain puts it together. So something there definitely stuck in my mind, even no matter how much I tried to fight it as a kid.
So many people in the music community that I'm in, when I tell them about my process, it's backwards to them.
Okay. How
Like
so?
they'll come up with a melody and the music
Right.
and construct it around that. And I approach it like a poem, and I build around those words.
Yeah.
So it's everything's just backwards to me. Are you left-handed?
No. No,
I
I'm
say I was like,
right-handed.
maybe it's the brain.
Backwards. I mean, we can, dive into how this album was recorded because that was completely backwards from anything I've ever seen. How albums should be recorded. No, but I very much relate to that. I think to me, I mean, most of the time I write kind of lyrics and music at the same time, but it's still not what my brain recognizes. I know so many musicians who could not even, most of the musicians I've played with, even who've supported my music, I always come to them, guys, this is a very serious song about XYZ and we're going to feel this and that. And they're like, which one is this again? Nobody knows the lyrics. And it's just because people's brains hear differently and feel differently, So in that regard, I always think that I'm not quite a musician the way I know musicians to be. I'm very much living in the world of music, but to me that comes somehow as just the background, kind of the backsplash.
Yeah, well, congratulations on All Them Rivers.
Thank you.
Beautiful work. I love the artwork. And like I was telling you before we got going, Florence and the Machine. And man, I can just get lost in your songs.
Yeah.
They're great.
Oh,
Great job.
thanks. Thank you so much for saying that. They're not very catchy, but I hope that they, catch you in a different way somehow. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, so tell us a little about the process. How'd you do it?
Yeah, I mean, the process, technically speaking, was to me the most kind of backwards thing. But there's even kind of a longer process to it. So these songs were kind of scattered in writing across 4 or 5 years. And kind of in a time where I wasn't playing music. So taking a few steps even further, I used to have a band way when I was, my late teens, early 20s. We played a bunch all around New York City. We went to, some local festivals and things like that. And then finally recorded an album right where it was that growing up cusp where, someone's going off to college, someone's 10 years older than us and now has a real life. And my voice was cracking up and I couldn't sing anymore. It was a whole other story there. But basically everything kind of fell apart on the one hand, very naturally, not because, dramatically the band fell apart, but just it came to a natural conclusion. And after that, it was just, I don't know, kind of life went on and I didn't really sing. I mean, I couldn't sing for a while. Or I barely could talk. And so singing these songs kind of came from a very different place at a time where I didn't even think to write for public anymore. I was just learning how to play guitar properly, all of these things. And I just did it to my kind of on my own, headphones in. And I think this is the first time in my life that I even heard what my voice actually sounds like. I think
What was that like?
for illuminating and very slow, like it was a slow descent. It wasn't like, whoa, I can sing. It was more, I've been singing in choirs and things like on stage with my parents since age, 5, 6, 7. So it's never been a question of whether I can or not, but I'm a girl. You always, and I grew up, like I said, watching TV and top 40 or whatever. And you're trying to sound pretty. You're listening to all the musicians who are really trying to sound pretty. And it wasn't until obscure random musicians that I started listening to who are grungy, who are, Soko, this French musician who's like, her voice seems to be lost all the time. I don't know what it is, laryngitis. I don't know what's going on. But she is crisping half of her songs and hits me so much every single time. Just such depth and sincerity in her words, that things like that have been waking me up. Some of my favorite male musicians who I, for the first time, was realizing, whoa, that's not like a beautiful voice, but this dude is singing so deeply from the heart and it hits me in that way. And it just shifted something in my mind of just singing for myself. And that opened a whole new realm. And writing came from that as well in a whole new way. Yeah. And so
Embracing obscurity.
very much in the not trying to sound pretty, to write something that people will like. All of my friends are always like, Varya, you need to write happier songs. And I'm like, when I try to write for you, maybe I will. But for the first time, I was kind of freed, because there was no audience, to just write what actually comes naturally to me. And so that's kind of that process. And again, it wasn't, one event that all the songs came together. It was kind of scattered. I accumulated them over a period of time. And then started kind of naturally singing, first to friends. Then I started playing solo at some small shows again. I started being invited to old festivals that I was at before, in a very small way. I was making like baby steps back onto the stage and just realized how impactful it is. And there was always this hilarious divide on any stage that I'm stepping into of people who know me who would be like, okay, we're ready to feel like it's going to be a thing. And then people who would just fall asleep somewhere in the back, and people who are like, ooh, no, Varya, this is going to be sad. I got to go. It's always this divide. And I very much welcomed it, because I'm like, okay, so out of this audience, this third is going to listen, and I'm going to, and great. Rather than any time I'd before try to sing in a bar where it's loud and we're trying to make people dance or something, I never ever felt heard or like there was any value to it. I would rather be drinking at the bar, frankly, in that atmosphere.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I do like those listening room settings
Yeah.
where
For sure.
people are coming for music,
Yeah.
not to meet up with a friend and talk over the musician.
100%. Yep. And that's kind of what drew me back in, just approaching it from a very different angle. Yeah. And then in recording the album, so finally, I mean, that was a very slow process of how I even got to it. At that point, I was living far away from home. I did not have a band. I had no idea how to record an album. I didn't have a proper microphone, nothing. So it was just me kind of stumbling in the dark, trying to figure it out. Gene Shaban, who is just a genius, he used to be the guitarist in my band, but he since has studied electronic production at Berkeley and is just, making sound for video games and doing crazy electronic stuff, which is just beautiful. He was my guide a lot in the beginning of, just basic things, how to use Logic, how to, adjust your mic, very, very small steps. And so I started recording just my voice and guitar, and that's all I had. I started this actually in like a tool shed in Austin when I was living for a little bit with just horrible acoustics, but it was enough for me to just figure out what the hell I'm doing. And then by the time I was ready to record a little bit better, this was beginning of COVID. I had moved back to New York area, and COVID being what it is. So my job is very much working with newborns. I coach women to give birth and things like that. But in COVID, there was no work. Everyone was super afraid. And so I found a family who was in a airtight sealed bubble and needed a nanny to live with them. And I'm like, great. So I moved in with them, and they had a basement where I just set up, and I would nanny during the day, musician during the night. And I just shut down there for like 3 or 4 months. That was my it was complete solitude, like to the point of insanity probably at some points, but it gave me the chance to just really play and really figure out what I'm doing. And so that was kind of the setup of most of what we did. I was saying that how the album was recorded kind of backwards, which is that the classic. I mean, you do kind of a scratch track of vocals, basic guitar, you do drums, you do bass, kind of you do the things you record the sounds that drive the music. And not only did I have no arrangement for that, I had no clue what any of those instruments would even sound like. I didn't have them. So I just recorded guitar to click, all the vocals. I started coming up with way more vocal arrangements that I've ever played with before. I think because it felt empty to me. So it wasn't even some big vision of many vocals. It was just like, oof, we need more sounds here. So that's how that came to be. And this
Right
album, if you've
on.
heard, I mean, there's a lot of vocals going on, a lot of layers, a lot of different lines and storylines of vocals going on, and that
I've
kind of came on the spot.
I really enjoy putting it on when I'm just sitting outside and just
Yeah,
having a drink after work, you know.
amazing. Yeah, yeah, to wind down, and there's lots of nature kind of elements to it. So bring it outside. I love it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So in that way, it was very much recorded backwards. And then I started kind of, okay, we've got this down. It's becoming to be a real thing. I think I'm going to actually make an album. Like, what do I do next? So I started calling up all my friends. And in the end, funnily enough, it was all the same musicians that I've been in the band with when I was a child. It would, just somebody was recording, my buddy Misha Kuznetsov was recording trumpet and clarinet way from Portland, just sending me tracks. My bassist and the drummer, I came to their house with my little tiny box and we kind of thumbled around, made up some lines, performed. With the same focus, right? I'm doing this interview right now, so very much, handmade process. I had no idea how to record, but somehow I was the studio that recorded everybody. Same goes with cello. My friend Camilla did the piano on the fight, which was beautiful. I've never had a piano in my band before, so that was a whole new addition. She was a new member of the family and just transformed the song entirely. So things like that. It was kind of I packed my pack, went around the world collecting sounds. And very much
That's incredible.
yeah, yeah, there was, I mean, to a tiny click, drums was one of the last things that we recorded, which is so hilarious to me now looking back because
It's backwards.
it's very backwards. If you really listen carefully, knowing this now, you will notice just how crooked the album is. Like it's not, it's not linear. The click is not accurate. So yeah, but it was it just happened organically like that. It's kind of mother necessity. What's the saying? The necessity is the mother of invention. It just came to be
Yeah.
that way.
Oh,
Yeah, and
cool.
then same buddy Gene put together all the electronics, made it into something way next level, made it sound like a real album, made in a real studio, and yeah, move on from there.
Well, how do you feel about it now?
Oh, I
Now that it's
love
out.
it. I love it. I'm kind of shocked to be honest, like looking back to those early days and just thinking, sitting in that tool shed, I might make an album. Because the first time we did it, we had a big band. We had, we sat in a room together. We've been already playing these songs in a big way forever. We got, a studio with an engineer, like five heads thinking at the same time. It was a big process. And frankly, I've never been remotely as happy with that album as I am with this one. It was just okay. And so to do this from nothing, it's a huge, I feel like this is a much bigger accomplishment than any like big professional album that I could have made because this
Yeah.
came very much from community, from the heart.
Well, you've mentioned a little bit about your travels.
Hmm.
If you don't mind, tell me a little bit about your journey to here.
A journey to
And
here.
even moving around to get those recordings.
Yeah. Oh gosh, for sure. I mean, I've been everywhere. It's the funniest thing when it comes to music. If you've put out music before, you very much know that everywhere they want you to identify where you live, where you're based,
Hmm.
any show, any I don't know, same even podcast. You looking for local musicians, local this, local that. I don't think I've ever been local. I'm not a vagabond backpacker, but I moved so many times that I don't even know where I am anymore. Well, no, I know. I am in San Francisco right now. I've been here for about a year, but probably by the next album, I'll be somewhere else, to be totally honest. New York has been home for the most of the time. That's where my family's at. That was where my family immigrated to when I was 14. But though even before that, our first landing spot was in New Orleans. So that kind of was
Oh wow,
my American start, and I am so grateful for that. I was 12 years old, but it was the absolute coolest landing pad because it
a
wasn't
lot of
America.
culture.
Yeah, it wasn't America. It was very different. the music definitely was incredible. Just seeing musicians on the street as a kid was like, oh, it was incredible. But it was very short lasted because we came there right in, oh, I'm gonna say the wrong year if I try. But basically, I went to school for about 6 months and then Katrina hit.
Oh,
Oh,
So that was a journey.
2005 ish.
2005-ish.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Somewhere in there.
2004 is when we probably arrived there, and then yeah, so we were there during Katrina for a few weeks afterwards, and then from there, that's how my family went to New York because we had some friends there, and you had to go somewhere. You know, we didn't leave when the hurricane was coming. Frankly, we didn't know how big of a deal it was. Nobody knew. But then they're like, okay, you stayed, congratulations, you survived, you still have to leave. So we went to New York, and the rest of our life started.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about what were you into like
as
as
far
far
as
as
a
a
career
career
path?
path?
Like
Like
you're
you're
a
a
doula.
doula.
How'd
How'd
you
you
get
get
into
into
that?
that?
Oh gosh, that's very different. So, I mean, I think just coming to how I grew up and music wasn't really a thing. I've always done music, but it never occurred to me that it could be a career. So I was always told, you need a real job. And to me, it was just something to work with kids always. I was the kid who babysat all the other kids at every party when I was little. So that just came naturally. And I never went to college for, originally immigrant complication reasons. But then eventually I was already working full time and I just kind of moved on and realized I didn't need to go to college. So yeah, I was a nanny at first, and then somebody had a baby. I started working with babies. I loved that more. Eventually, started kind of educating the parents more than they were telling me what to do, and it just kind of kept snowballing. So about 7 years ago, I just transitioned into birth, and now I'm coaching women to birth and teaching you about newborn care, childbirth education. Yeah, I love it. It's a very different world. I feel like I live in
Yeah.
two very different realms, but it's something that definitely still works, I think, in the same place in my mind, which is deep, deep connection. I'm going into big depths with the ladies I work with and, accessing something that you don't really get at normal doctor's appointments, a lot of times not with your friends. I'm your sister, I'm your therapist, I'm your mom, all of these things, your coach. And I think when I do music, it's the same thing. All of my songs seem to be kind of, to me at least, something very mentor, kind of, I don't know, a call to be a little bit higher. And I think that's what I do in
Yeah.
anything that I do. So somehow, on a weird tangle, it resonates and it works together.
Right
Right
on.
on.
Yeah,
So,
So
New
New
Orleans,
Orleans,
New
New
York.
York.
right.
You mentioned
Austin.
Austin.
Austin. Yeah, I never really felt like New York was the place for me to be. It's too noisy, it's too much. I can't do it. I tried. I mean, I've been there for on and off for 15 years. And all my family and friends are there, so it is home, but it's never been a peaceful place for me to live. So I've always tried to run away to different places. From just living in different spots in the tri-state area to eventually I bought an RV and traveled around a bunch and just kind of lived on the road for a while. Landed in Austin somehow, our RV kind of died at that point and we just stopped. So
Set
Austin
up shop.
was semi-accidental. I definitely wanted to stay some time in Austin. It's a very, music, first of all, that was kind of the thing that drew me the most. And the fact that I knew how many people were moving to Austin at the time. It was like something like 100 people a day were just moving to Austin at the time. This is 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7 now. I don't know. It was just
It
a
really
place
became
that
a mecca
it
for
is.
music.
Yeah. I think the vibe that I got is very much that people from all over, like the weirdos of Texas, just run to Austin, and that's where the weirdness pot is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved it. Yeah, can't say that I'm the fan of the weather. It's too much. It's just too hot. But I've never meant to stay. I think it was for me, I love experiencing actually living in different places. I've never been a good vagabond, even just living in the RV, that's too fast. But I like to stay in one place for a few years, really absorb the culture, really kind of assimilate a little bit, and then go to something
What do you
else.
think you took away from it?
From Austin?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, good question. Just being open. I think people are so open and free to be themselves, and not in like New York cool weird way or the San Francisco we're hippie and that's our cool way, but just genuinely your weird, genuine self. Austin is so welcome to you being exactly who you are. The fact that you still go to a Friday night club and you're playing country music and singing and dancing like do-si-do or something. It's fantastic. I love how much culture there is there and how welcome everyone's weirdness is. And in terms of music too, the thing I said about it kind of reigniting that understanding of everyone and nobody's a musician at the same time brought back my life of music a little bit, in a new way, that I could just play. You don't have to be good or fancy about it. You don't have to have music out. Just play, just write.
I remember I'm from a fairly small town.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got into the music scene, there ain't that many fish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a small pond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember moving down to Mobile,
Okay.
Alabama,
Uh-huh.
and such a big pond
Okay.
and very little fish.
Okay.
And it was so hard to get traction.
Mm.
But then once you finally get in, and the music community really opens up to you, and you kind of find your place.
Yeah.
I mean, what has that been for you as you've moved around?
Oh, that's a really good question. I love that analogy though. Big pond, little fish. Yeah. That hits home. I think it's been probably harder for me to find a community and a niche. The majority of my community, I guess, or anyone who knows me as a musician knows my music is still in New York. And it's very much the Russian community, or Russian speaking community rather. Very important distinction these days. Yeah, and it felt, in New York, it always felt very much like this is a huge musical Grand Central, and yet I am kind of in this Russian-speaking bubble, and I could never break off from it. And I realize now how amazing that community is, and so how lucky I was to have that. But growing up, it was very much like, how do I break off? How do I break out of this? And it was a bit of a struggle. So that was the coolest part about moving, just expanding those horizons a little bit. Even though still, New York will always be kind of that original landing spot for my music, for sure. Yeah, and in Austin, I think it's how do I even put this? I think it's a very big city, size-wise, and at the same time, everybody knows everybody. And yeah, once you kind of get in, then you know everyone. And that in isn't this mysterious wannabe, you can't sit with us club. It's just local kids, and everyone is just trying to have a good time. Everyone has a real job somewhere and just wants to play some music on a Saturday afternoon or a Friday night or something. So that was great. I think it reignited a lot of my, not even love in music, I've always had that, but I guess some courage or something to just come out and play. And I say the word play here in both meanings, like just play with it, just feel, just go out there. You don't have to be particularly good, you just have to enjoy it. That's the only prerequisite. So that was great. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, now that you have the album finished, but is a song ever truly finished, or is it living and breathing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the songs, once I write them, it's really hard to go and edit anything. They're written in stone. I have no idea how or why, but they're done. But then when I started recording by myself, for the first time, the canvas was so much wider. and I could,
Fun
yeah,
to
Fun
I've
to go
never
outside the
done.
lines.
Yeah, and so now I look at it so differently. So even listening to the album, not one of those songs is finished in my mind. I'm always like, okay, but a little bit more of that, a little bit less of that, and I can. And what about this whole line? And that instrument would have been good, or I didn't record this correctly. So I don't know if a recording can ever be finished. But in my writing process, it's very much one and done, and it's almost like the older I get, the more I write, the more I make myself to go back there. And no, you should edit. Like, no, there's no writer in the world who writes a book and doesn't edit it. You have to go back and see, especially since, songs that have been written emotionally and really quickly. So I try to do that. But I don't know. Somehow, if I write, it's written, it's done. Both musically and lyrics, just it's hard to play with it. But then recording it opens up a whole new venue to do that.
Do you have someone that you share these with when you think they're done
to
to give you validation or critique?
Yeah, I mean, friends. It used to be my sister. Always, she has to hear. You use the word kind of for approval or critique, or for validation. I think I used to do that a lot more, and my writing got exponentially better and more interesting, at least for me, when I stopped doing that. So it's
Oh.
much more that I have a song, it's done. Would you like to hear it? Rather than, hey,
I like that.
I think it's a song. What do you think? Because I used to do that a lot, and my sister would be my biggest fan and my biggest critic. And if she didn't like something, it was ruined. So yeah, I think it's very healthy to just kind of step back from it a little bit, at least for me, because maybe I was just more receptive to criticism, I don't know, than someone else. But I got a lot better when I just started to just let's pretend no one will ever hear this. What will it sound like then?
What inspires you? Like, oh, them rivers. Take me back to that.
Yeah, Oh Them Rivers. Oh Them Rivers is a very existential exploration period in my life. And a big component, something that I've actually haven't really talked about this album in other interviews yet, is that it doesn't read as any kind of a relationship or love ballad in any way, I don't think. But it was very much, I was in a relationship that I was unhappy in, and we had a lot of very opposing beliefs. A lot of very opposing just ideologies or things that we just saw very, very differently in life. And I think to me, that was the inspiration, because all I knew how to write before that were love songs that I thought people wanted to hear. And so that was the way I started writing. And then it pivoted into something way deeper, way different. And so now, years later, when I go back and listen to those songs, I mean, the meaning of each one of these songs has changed so much for me. And if you ask me again in a year, I'll tell you the meaning completely differently, probably. I keep finding something new in it. But an interesting angle to it is that some of these songs, like Molds and Oh Them Rivers, these songs were very much a conversation with somebody directly that was not necessarily about our relationship, but the things that we disagree on and how to get a little bit softer, how to accept more. And that was both my exploration of the other person's ideologies that I don't agree with, and finding some softness in me. Stop fighting as much. I was a very feisty teenager, very much I know better and I'm going to do all these things and against the world. And so it was a big dialogue like that for me. And you can hear that, I think, in most of the songs on this album, that it's, even the song The Fight, it's, I want to fight a little bit less.
That one resonates.
Yeah.
And they say that an artist is in constant need of tragedy. And that brings out the best.
Yeah. I don't know that's how every artist works, but I definitely resonate with that. For me,
Yeah.
writing music or poetry or just, in my journal, whatever, that's always a place to put all my sorrows, or my doubts, all my bad feelings, everything down to. Most people are very surprised if they know me first and then they hear my music, because I come off so tra la la, and then they hear me and they're like, "Whoa, where did
You're
that come
somber.
from? You're so dark and sad." And to me, it's not. And even these songs, to me, they're very bright. There's so much hope, and there's so much kind of learning and coming to grow, kind of almost like a coming of age vibe in it. To me, that's how I write. So I don't mean for them to be sad necessarily. But that's definitely my safe space to just put all of my existential dread onto.
What do you make of the future?
What
What do you want to do?
What do
With
I
your
want to
music?
do? I'm already working on the next album, actually. So that's fun. And saying what I just said, the next one is actually way sadder, I think. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh no. No, but it's very honest. It's a lot more straightforward, I think. And it's an EP for now. It's half recorded already. But it took me so long to record this album that already those songs are aging, and I think now I'm adding more, and now it's growing to maybe be a full-length album. I'm letting it breathe. I'm not in a hurry. So I'm gonna get to it when I get to it, which is another freedom of not trying to, not working in a band, having so much kind of not having any deadlines. But yeah, there's an album in the process.
What's
What's your favorite pastime?
Like
Like to read?
Pastime. I love to read. I knit.
Cool.
I love hiking. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of audiobooks. I definitely watch a lot of shows, so I'm not going to be all fancy and I just read and hike. But yeah, for me, a good audiobook in my ears and some yarn in my hands and a sweater later, I feel enlightened.
What genre?
What
books?
genre for books? Oh, I love classical reading. I went a couple of years ago on a spree of reading every single book by Virginia Woolf, and that was a journey, for sure. But it depends. I think I like to listen to a lot of nonfiction, because that just gets, it just processes better. And probably a very boring answer, but I just listen to a lot of books about childbirth and infant care and things like that, because that's my work.
Yeah.
But
Like
reading
what
right
you like?
now, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
But reading right now, I have actually a Virginia Woolf book on my nightstand, and I was just trying to figure out what next to read on my Kindle. I tend to read like 3 books at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. One will be like in the bedroom, one is more boring than the other, another one in the ears. It's yeah.
Very cool. Well, do you feel like sharing a song?
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is my little guitar that also is covered with lyrics and things.
Oh,
I like that.
Always. Yeah. So, I think I'm gonna go with the song "The Fight," since you said that one resonated with you. And this is the song that kind of started the recording process of this album. "The Fight" to me is a very, very special song. It's the only one on the track that doesn't have a drum beat, and was actually inspired again by Virginia Woolf. I don't know why she's coming up in this podcast as much, but but I was very, very much inspired by her writing, her stream of consciousness writing, and just how there's so many lines that you have to read again and again, and each time you'll find a little bit, I don't know, a new meaning, a new angle to it. And so this is how the writing process came for this. And as to the meaning of it, I'll leave that up to you for now.
Okay.
Come on in, the water's fine, she said. Break the wheel, cross the line, take a breath, pass it down, look around. It was all about us, and now it's gone. To believe in a soul is to mistrust a mind, to misuse the guide for which our fathers died. But my father left me in a field that's mine, she said. Come on in, the water's fine. So I walked right into the white, wild waves. I wanted to feel how much my soul weighs, but the bright world around me began to scream. Scared, I let the water take me. Da 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 dum, da da dum, da 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 dum. Come on in and join the fight, she said. Take a breath, take a bite. It gets more sour the more we abide, but I hear it's so sweet on the other side as we turn the tide. Da 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 dum, da da da. To believe in a soul is to mistrust a mind, to misuse the guide for which our fathers died. But my father left me in a field that's mine, she said. Come on in and join the fight. So I walked right into the white, wild waves. I wanted to feel how much my soul weighs, but the bright world around me began to scream. Scared, I let the water take me. Come on in, the water's fine, she said. Break the wheel, cross the line, take a breath, pass it down, look around. It was all about us, and now it's gone. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum.
Wow.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your guitar. Very interesting chords.
Chords. Well, this is one of those songs, one of many songs that I've written where I come to my musicians later and I ask them, what is this chord? Yeah.
I just know it's beautiful.
Thanks. I very much write this by ear. I mean, some chords I'm not a big musician. If you ask me to play anything else, it'll take me a very long time to learn anything. So very much I play this by ear. Some chord progressions, I just go with them by ear. I'm not sure how to say it better. I never
That's
really
that's
know what they
perfect.
are before I have to write them down and present them to somebody else.
So
It's all good.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, what about all the words
you
you get on there?
It's got a lot of lyrics actually from this album. I think a couple from other songs. But yeah, some of my favorite lines are here. If I can read it. Well, all them rivers running blind and heartless. Let me run with them. Don't let me drown in these still waters. It was kind of a big mantra for me when feeling stuck when writing this. A tattoo I have that's actually in Russian, but that's from Peter Pan, which was my favorite story growing up. But it reads, well, in translation, and actually it's not translation, it's the original. This one is technically translated, which is, merry, innocent, and heartless, which was in the book the description that Wendy gave to her daughter when she was telling her about, why don't you fly anymore, Mom? With all the stories of Peter Pan. And Wendy, the mom at that point, said that because the only people who can fly are the ones who are merry, innocent, and heartless. And grown-ups aren't like that anymore. And I always liked the idea of heartless being used in this very positive way, that it's not heartless like I don't care, but meaning, just a little bit less heavy, a little bit less attached. Because kids are heartless in a very innocent way, in a very just, I don't have the capacity to care and I'm going to do what I do and I'm going to do it with my whole heart, rather than a malicious way. So to me, that was kind of the line of, oh, them rivers running blind and heartless. They just go.
I
like that.
Yeah.
And
it's just early in childhood. That seems like some of the rare snapshots of people being them true selves. And the older they get, the further they get away from it.
Yeah. 100%. And then you start writing songs you think people might want from you rather than writing from the heart. And so I've always liked the idea of that heartlessness being a good thing. What else do I have on here? It kind of goes up and down. This is a line from Molds, another song from this one. Take my hand, let's jump head first into the wind. Hold my eyes with your eyes, don't ever let go. Let the wind change our course, reshape our molds. Don't be scared. I've done this before. Yeah.
Very good.
I always like writing on my guitars because you buy a new guitar and it's just so alien. It's like breaking into new shoes. To me, it's like mark it up, key the Tesla. Just make it yours. And then you're committed. So
Well, I think I've got three more questions.
yeah. Shoot.
So, plug your socials. How can people keep up with what you're doing?
I'm most present on Instagram. That is my hub. This is where I'm alive. Everything gets copy-pasted to Facebook, and I truthfully have not actually opened the website in probably a decade. So I'm not actually on there. It's a ghost. Yeah, I mean, the music is on all the streaming platforms now. And you will find me on a lot of platforms, all where the musicians are, but Instagram would be the one place to connect with me. If you want to keep up with what I'm actually doing through my life, it's all there.
All right. Question two. Places. Favorite place you've ever been? Or somewhere you'd like to go?
Oh, same. Scotland.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And why?
It's so beautiful. It's the most crisp open air I've ever tasted or smelled or felt on my skin. It's the most beautiful views ever. My partner and I were traveling back to all the places I've been, many places. But we traveled through Europe in kind of the tail end of COVID. for like 6 months straight. And one of the last stops, we started in Ireland, just hopping buses and trains all around, and barely grazed through Scotland. It was just Glasgow and Edinburgh, and then went on to the rest of the UK and Europe. And on the last kind of weeks, well, first of all, we needed to leave Europe for visa reasons. But we were like, okay, but one last hurrah. Like, what didn't we do? Can we, like, what? And it was unanimously that we need to go to Scotland, we need to rent a van, and we need to properly explore the Highlands and not just do the pubs in the big cities. And it was the most beautiful place I've ever been to. The most kind, selfless people. It's wonderful. I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Right on. And question 3. It's a tough one.
Okay.
Will you share one more song?
I'd love to.
All right.
Yeah. Another song. I'm trying to think through which songs to share with you. Probably, I will share the song Molds. To me, Molds is always such an inspiring song. I don't know if that's a tacky thing to say about your own song, but Molds is always, to me, a call and a reminder to just take a step back, look at where you are, and notice the limitations that you're setting for yourself up. What are the things that you've learned as a kid that you never realized were even things or patterns that you have? So it's a song all about breaking from your molds, noticing where you actually do have the power to change things in your life. So it's one I come back to myself, and it's telling me something every time I sing it. Dancing in the dark, heeding all those days and nights we bark, hating our molds. We are made from our brother's bones, seeing with our mother's eyes, afraid of our own. Dancing in the dark to the world's saddest songs is what we do best. Dancing in my tears is your reflection. I won't wipe them off, 'cause you might disappear. I won't wipe them off without your permission. Dancing in our molds is our thing, my dear. Dancing on the edge of our dreams. Oh, open your eyes, take a step forward. The world will catch you when love will take over. Take my hand, let's jump headfirst into the wind. Hold my eyes with your eyes, don't ever let go. Lay it the wind scared. I've done this before. We are made from our brother's bones, seeing with our mother's eyes, afraid of our own.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Varya, thank you so much for your time
Thank you
The
for having me,
conversation
Ellen. It's been great.
and music.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think you're doing a great thing here, and it's an absolute pleasure to chat with you today.
Right on. Well, thank you so much.